merch indeed. A child shall lead them.
To buy our merch.
To buy our merch, dear listener. Speaking of merch, we are in the midst of a Ronin stream, and we've got an unsigned hype.
Unsigned hype. Okay, the next song on our unsigned hype list is another one from the homie Silver. This one is called Cinnamon, Tourmaline, and Ink. What's Tourmaline?
I don't know.
I know what ink is. I know what cinnamon is.
Yeah, it's probably a dessert. Tourmaline. I don't know.
All right, so remember, all music, lyrics, and recordings are done by Silver.
Excellent. Whoever Lump Kenny is, thank you for making the move from YouTube to Rumble. Very good.
Welcome.
Welcome. Like, share, comment, subscribe. All right, guys, here we go. Here we go. Let's do it. Let's do it. This is Silver Kyri. The name of the song is, what was the name of the song again?
Cinnamon, Tourmaline, and
Tourmaline,
Ink.
And what?
And Ink.
And Ink. Here we go.
Writing.
I sat beside that tree for hours, watching the sky shift, slipping stone into fire and lilac, color now like some sunwrapped nightshade, then a deep violet, violin in its stillness, the moon a silver scar, waking from the shadowscape, trying to scream but can't against that breathless dark, nor could I if I wanted. Onward still it crawls, the sky a sea floor painted marigold, and clouds of dripping smoke paint everything there now, a bitter mirror of that cool night before, a sea like sunwrapped nightshade, but still silent, the sky. And then the colors fade, wax wings choked in a mist, feathers melting quick like honey beside that tree.
What was the name of that one again?
This one is Cinnamon, Tourmaline, and Ink.
That one was done not by a guitar.
Is it a ukulele?
It's a baritone ukulele, is what they said. So
some of the sounds.
I was like, oh, that was a guitar. And then I was like, wait a second. That can't be like just a guitar. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty glad that I actually caught that. I'm very impressed with myself.
I was going to ask what it was. There was an instrument that we used to have.
You probably thought it was a regular guitar.
Tiny little drum with like a skin over it. And when you went like this, it had like 2 strings with 2 little beads on it. It would go dum, 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 dum. And some of the sounds, the way that Silver was hitting the strings in it, sounded like that sound of that bead. It was very interesting.
Guitar, just ukulele by itself for this one.
I liked the spoken word part of it. That was my favorite by far, like the beginning of it when Silver was reading that. Let me pull up actually it's right here. It had a sort of like, you remember how at the end of the Korn song Daddy where he like breaks down and that's like just left in there and it kind of gives you this like sort of real feel to it. I felt the same thing happen even at the end of this song because as it sounded like as Silver was trying to like stop recording, there was like some extra sounds going on that you would normally hear if you just recorded this. And so it sort of gave it this raw, like human, like real us sort of feel that you could vibe with. And then lyrically at the beginning, I sat beside that tree for hours, watching the sky shift, sleeping stone into fire and lilac, colored now like some sun-wrapped nightshade. I love, like, when there's nothing to do, and when I say nothing to do, like, I mean, you have no internal pressure that you have to accomplish something. And you have no internal pressure that you need to look at your phone or you need to like be anywhere or do anything or take care of anyone. It's just like a singular moment where you're like, I'm in this moment and this is all I'm made for in this moment. I love like times like that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Silver is describing like just sitting by this tree for hours. Those moments really realistically were, I had those moments before I had children. Now that I've had kids, I always feel like there's somebody I should be taking care of or something that I should be doing, which I don't think is super healthy. Like, I think that you should be able to like disconnect and be like, this moment is mine. This is for me and God and whatever. But it's very, very difficult for me to find those moments internally. I'm not saying that I can't find those moments. Like, I think those moments are available to me, but I don't necessarily capitalize on them. So I sat beside that tree for hours watching the sky shift. The sleeping stone into fire and lilac. I didn't know if we're talking about like a literal, like, you know how people have like stones and quartz and like different stuff that like actual stones that they that have different meanings for them. And I think you know, are supposed to carry certain energies.
Crystals and all that stuff. Yeah.
Or if we're talking about like sitting and watching the sky and then you're seeing the sky change. I mean,
that might be talking about the sun or the moon. You know what I'm saying? I sat beside that tree for hours watching the sky shift. I'm assuming from
the sky, as the sun is changing, the sky is changing.
Yeah. So when he says sleeping stone into fire and lilac, that could be the red
the
sun.
Turning to a, but lilac is purple. But I mean, the sky could be a purplish color.
Yeah. It's
a deep violet into stillness. So it does sound like it's like becoming not night. The moon is silver scar. Okay, that part too.
Did you catch that? It says deep violent in its stillness.
I did not catch violent there. I read violet again.
I became obsessed with using the word violent in my raps because I had done something, blah, blah, blah. It was the third time I'd used it, and they said, yo, every time you use the word silent, we know the next thing you're going to do is going to be some shit about violent. Because you don't got anything else that rhymes with violent, nigga.
So now you were on a quest to do something different?
So ever since that, anytime I see violence in a song, like I'm like Kendrick when he said, I choose violence. But he didn't use the word silence. I said, son of a bitch, he figured it out. But yeah, I caught that, Sylvie. Color now like some sun-wrapped nightshade. See what I'm saying?
It didn't go to silent. The moon, a silver scar. I guess for me, when I read that, like a scar is usually like a line, especially, when you think about, if people cut themselves, it's like a real line. And so when it says, like when the moon is just like a tiny piece. So when it said the moon, a silver scar. So I assumed it was like the moon when it was just like a little bit, waking from the shadowscape, trying to scream, but can't against the breathless dark. Nor could I if I wanted. And I thought that was like a double between the moon and Silver. Again, I don't know if this is Silver's point of view or if he's talking from somebody else's point of view. But the person in the song, as they're watching like the night come down, they're sitting by this tree and they're watching this all, and then the moon comes up and it's just this little scar, and like it looks like it's completely, you could look at it one of two ways, right? You could look at it as that little silver is going to like go away and then it's going to push back that black until it's a full-blown moon again. Or it's like this little sliver and the darkness is like engulfing it and like completely taking it over. And instead of thinking of the full cycle of it, where you try to scream but can't against the breathless dark. And it could be like the way that the person themselves is feeling internally. Because I think a lot of times the way that we interpret the world around us is a lot of times by how we feel. So if you feel like that sort of silence, that breathless dark is kind of like closing in on you, then when you look at the moon, you're like, oh my gosh, the darkness is closing in on that scar as well. Where, if, like let's say somebody's pregnant and they're thinking about like the birth of the child, and they're looking up at the moon and the moon's getting small, and then they're like, oh, it's going to come in a full blown. And like you think about life and how it cycles through, like, you have the parts of so just, like depending on what phase you're in, you're going to see the world that way. Onward still it crawls, the sky a seafloor painted marigold. Love the way that was worded. But the sky a seafloor was interesting because a seafloor would be dark.
Mm-hmm.
But then painted marigold. So it's like,
yeah, because, you got that twilight period where, darkness is coming, but there's still that last little burst of, it's interesting. I'm not going to go like to the complete ramifications of everything that this person said, because I'm not sure that they're completely correct. Definitely their application isn't correct. I'll tell you afterward.
Mm-hmm.
But they were talking about not seeing the world in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, look, here you have a creation narrative, and it says God made the day, and, day, evening, and morning, the first day, blah, blah, blah. And so she says, if you just look at that passage, all you have is evening and morning. I mean, yeah, evening and morning, or morning and evening. That's all you have. But they said, there's no mention of twilight there. Mm-hmm. There's no mention of the sunrise there. Mm-hmm. It just says the sun rules the day. But it doesn't tell us when the sun comes out to rule the day, because he's not there all day. He's got the moon, and the lesser light rules the night. So the point is, all we have is sun and the moon, light and dark. That's all we have. But we know that there is a spectrum between light and darkness, especially as it relates to the sun and the moon, because we have this thing called twilight. Mm-hmm. Because we have this thing of dawn or 5:30. Okay, from 5:30 to 7:30, the sky is going to turn fiery red or fiery orange or violet or wherever. We just had the Aurora Borealis in Maine, whatever. So it's like, it's all those, and the person was making the point that, yeah, the Bible can communicate like these basic things. It's not trying to tell you every single detail. You have the wisdom to realize that, yes, it's evening and morning the first day, but there's obviously a spectrum between how we, what evening and morning is, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. It made me think of that because when you see, and I'm not a nature person, this is how I know it's incredible. When you go out into nature and you see this sometimes, where the moon is crazy, or the sky, the sunset stuff is like perfect. It comes like, sometimes we've like taken out pictures recently and be like, yo, this is like a postcard. Like we're standing inside of a postcard.
Yeah.
So the moments with the most beauty are when night and day are kind of getting an equal say with each other almost, where there's that conflict between night and day.
Ooh,
that little spectrum is where the beauty comes from.
Yeah.
So it's not to say, oh yeah, there's true, it's night, evening, and morning, and there is a spectrum. We have to tolerate the spectrum. Rather, the spectrum seems to be, if you can get into that sweet spot and exist in that world, you'll be in some pretty good shape. If you could learn to, because here's the thing: is those hours in the day, the sky doesn't stay that way for very long.
No.
Right? And so like you get a few opportunities if you're lucky to kind of see this, that to have that creep up on you. Most of us have to be like, okay, this is going to happen every, 7 o'clock or whatever, and then just go out and look for it and whatever. But that's why I asked Silver, I said, is this a concept record or is this a standalone? And they said, yeah, it's a standalone. And it is, but at the same time, like I found myself back in the forest with a little bit of discordant, harmonies or whatever. And you're playing the ukulele, not the guitar. And I'm pretty proud of myself that I found that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot in here where it's like, yo, if you just listen out for stuff, like you can, it's just like the sky. Like if you want to say that, you want to draw a picture as a kid and the sky is just blue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you draw a night scene, the sky is just black.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen, like, oh, you're just playing guitar. But if you actually focus, you like, nah, there's something different about that instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. Like when you look up in the sky and things like that, like every day it's different. The cloud formations are never, none of that shit is ever the same. But again, like I'm not a big nature person. So like the most I've enjoyed nature is when we have songs like this and then we go for a walk. Then I'm like, oh, then I'm able to see it and process it as that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So growing up in New York City doesn't really comport to a lot of like enjoyment of nature.
Right.
So there's a lot of times when you'll show me something and I feel like, oh my God, that's crazy. Look at that. You know what I'm saying?
That's so interesting. Yeah, because when we go for a walk, I always think, well, one of these times, he'll stop to basically smell the roses because it's just like it's a walk. But I like to walk and like look at everything, the sky, and there's a lot to see. There's the sky. If you're walking by water, you want to look at the water. I want to look at the sand. I want to look at what patterns did the water leave as it left the shore if I'm on the beach. Like there's so much I want to see. That is so interesting, and I didn't really actually realize that you're not predisposed that way. Like I always felt like, oh, next time, but I never thought, well, wait a minute, it's just right, you grew up in New York, you're not going to see that. It's a bunch of friggin' buildings, and you're trying to get from point A to point B, and you don't really want to see a whole lot in between because it's not that beautiful in that, in the gutter of that city. It smells too. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but like I knew people that had a lot of fun in summertime in New York. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's just we didn't. There are people that had fun, but we didn't because we got like if I could have done that again, man, like if I'd had that to do over again, I would have been a lot more like I would have tried to have a lot more fun in the summer, for us it was just kind of like that's when shit gets really, really bad because nobody's in school, nobody has shit to do, so now you're bored, and the chances of, folks are getting. Anytime
we
someone got
saw
shot
in our town.
Yeah, most of it was summer.
Happened.
Yeah, most of it was summer. Like dudes getting shot and stuff. Like if you get shot, it's usually in the summer. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of like.
Right.
Yeah, and because even like the detective cycles were different too, depending on the season. New York it was pretty crazy. So. That was what my mind was focused on. I wasn't really focused on even looking up and seeing because I'm sure there were like amazing vibes.
Oh yeah, there had to. I mean, when I went to New York, as long as I was there for just a short span of time, like the lights, the people, like I liked seeing all that stuff. Although for me, it got exhausting really fast. It's not something I wanted to live. I remember my friends saying, "Oh my God, I would love to live in this city," and I was like, if I had to live in that city for me. That would be like crushing as a person. Like I wouldn't want to be there. But it's interesting because most times that we spend out in nature, if we stop and like just like sit and enjoy, I think like out of all the times we've ever done that, it always seems like you kind of come around to it and you like vibe with it.
Oh, agree.
There was one time though, we went into the woods and you were like, your leg was going on the leaves, and I was like trying to write in my journal.
I remember that.
And all I could hear was, I was like, you know what, this is not going to work.
I remember that.
I was like, let's just go for a walk.
Yeah.
I probably should have been like, why aren't you, what's going on?
I mean, it was just, you know.
And the bugs were biting you.
Bugs were there.
This is not a good time.
You could tell Shorty was like, okay, you've ruined this again. Here we're going. And then the colors fade. Wax winds choked in a mist. Feathers melting quick like honey beside that tree. That's like...
No, wait.
The very
you
last
missed this
stanza.
part. Yeah. And clouds of dripping smoke paint everything there now. A bitter mirror of that cold night before. A sea like sun-wrapped nightshade, but still silent, the sky. And then the colors fade, wings wax show. And then, and then it goes into this example. That was, what's the homie's name that went flying toward the sun and melted his wings? And
Icarus.
Icarus, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I was just looking at the last stanza because it looks to me like that's talking about the ephemeral nature of that kind of beauty in the spectrum, because it's gone pretty quickly.
Oh, right.
It's
and
gone.
Using that analogy.
Yeah.
Feathers melting quick and like honey beside the tree. Yeah, you know what I realized is okay, like for instance, last year we spent a little bit of time in Florida, and the sunsets in Florida, they lasted a really long time. You're watching that sun burn forever. In Maine, it's so friggin' depressing. The sun is up and then like it's like there it goes. It's done. It's over. And like that burn of the sun, it only lasts for seconds. Like maybe minutes. Maybe I'm exaggerating. It might be minutes, but it's not very long that like it turns this like burning, like if you're driving, like you can hardly see. And then all of a sudden, whoop, it's completely gone. Where in Florida, it just it goes a really long time. I don't know why that is, but so I do think that your environment really like dictates to you how things are going to be, like what things feel like and how you experience them, because
100%, yeah.
Anyway,
I'm glad that we listened to those two songs back to back, because I really feel like you get a real like understanding of like the style. And even though they're not meant to be there, like at a subconscious level, there's a clear link in my view anyway between song A and song B. Extra points for the ukulele thing. This is like one of my proudest moments in the world that I caught that shit. Like, yes, yes.
I liked the ukulele mixed with the reading. I felt like that the reading went well, we saw two songs back to back, so I felt like the reading on this one I enjoyed more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I felt like I was kind of like in the mood of that, like it was a sort of like kind of like a low feeling, like as it was being read and like stuff. So I was able to kind of enter into it and stuff. So, and I love spoken word type situations. So for me, this one's a solid 8.4.
Yeah, this one, they're like a part 1, 2. They're not a part 1 or part 2 of anything, but they do have artistic ties. Yeah. And obviously, you know, you get a lot of inspiration from nature, which is really interesting because you're one of those people too. And it's weird to me, like all of the really good artists and poets that I've ever met have that kind of relationship with nature, except for me. I write music, but I don't have that connection to nature at all. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Like when I'm the most inspired, it's mostly about people in a specific kind of context, you know, like the virtues, sacrifice, whatever. Those things inspire me, but like nature by itself doesn't, which is very interesting to me. So when I see somebody like you or even David with the Bible, you know, like the deer pants of the, like those are my least favorite passages in the Bible when David talks about nature. I'm like, oh God.
What?
Yeah, I don't like them.
See, I love those. I'm like, yes, that's so true. I was reading the one where it says when like deep calls to deep. And I think it's close to the panting one, but like I was thinking of like the depths of like your soul, like the depths of who we are as a person that's unseen by anyone, and it calls out to the depths of who God is, and like those things interact without like there's just something that like your mind is an important part of, I think, your worship toward God, but there is something that's unspoken, that's disconnected, like it's different than your mind, like it's a deep part of your soul.
Yeah.
That when that part of you is like, that deep part of you is like reaching out toward God while he's reaching back. I don't know. It's an incredible thing. And for me, like the nature analogies always get me because I feel like, I will say the scientific discoveries do fuck with that a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Why?
Just like the, like the physical world and how whatever, but I just bring it back to whatever it is, because there is a real out beyond that. I'm not even going to go into that right now.
Yeah, we're not saying that those things aren't real. We're just saying that we're not seeing the thing in itself.
Yes, but I thought they were more real than they are real.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's not how I understand those things at all. But that increases all that stuff to me. But I see where. Well,
yeah, but we're two different. I don't know. We should talk about it at some point. But anyway, 8.4 for me. What did you give it?
Easily a 9.4. Although, Kyrie, don't go anywhere. I have a question for you. When you were talking about up here, where it talks about the sleeping stone into fire and lilac, so I took the fire metaphor and I said, "Oh, he's talking about the sun." So, what was a sleeping stone that you were talking about here? Because then right after it, it goes to the moon. The moon's a silver scar. So, was that the sun, the sleeping stone? And then, if that's the case, what is a sleeping stone? Maybe I can Google that now because I already gave my interpretation. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm going to wait for Sylvie to give us that information. Was there a drum? Was there drums in this one?
I didn't.
It said something about a tongue drum.
I didn't notice because for me it was the spoken word up against the way that the music was being played. Like it all had this sort of like hum to it, where it was like. So I wouldn't have even noticed that. I kind of feel things as a whole.
Oh, the sleep stone could be the earth. Watching the sky shift, sleeping stone into fire and lilac. Yeah, like the reflection of the sun on there. It could be. I want to see what it's rare that we get the actual.
Yeah, the lilac was sleeping stone into fire and lilac. Yeah, I don't know. Is silver even still here?
Yeah, they're still there. I'm waiting. They're gonna show. Be patient, people. Be patient.
Because I'm wondering, like, well, we've got the deep violet into the stone. That's sleeping stone.
Like I said, I just put that as the sun. You know what I'm saying?
And lilac. Yeah.
Because the sun is technically a star, right?
That's what I've heard.
And you could say it's a stone at some level. But Silver will tell us very soon.
If they haven't left.
I'm gonna try to find a music shop that actually has one of those guitars.
Ukulele?
Or like a ukulele. Because when I look at it, it just looks like, it kind of looks like a guitar. Maybe even like a little.
Yeah, they've got like 5 strings to them.
Yeah.
They sound very beachy.
That's the other thing too. It's like, who randomly has a ukulele?
Yeah, and there it is. Silver came through. It's the sunset. Sleeping stone is just the gray of the sky. The description inspired by
L.A. Disputes song "You Ascendant." The sky, soft stone, agate blue lace, pale white bone and brush. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's a combination of the fire, the purple, and then the gray of the sky.
Silver, I have 7 ukuleles.
Allahu Akbar.
Wow.
That's God's number of perfection.
Why so many?
Yeah, like when did you get an affinity for ukuleles?
Yeah, it's like a collector's item.
Yeah, Mike's like, what? 7? 7? Also, what the hell is a tongue drum? Said there was a tongue drum used as well. Okay, so that right there, color now like some man. So we were pretty much right.
Yeah,
it's the sky, although the sleeping stone was the sky itself.
Yeah, go ahead, Silver.
Obviously, Silver, we want to know more.
More.
7 ukuleles. What did you say? They were collecting them?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, at that point, like, do you really need 7 of them? Or has it become like a collector's item?
I've had about 4 guitars in my lifetime.
Where you like the look of them. Here's a fun one. Here's one from this vacation.
Well, yeah. Specifically, though, 7 like that you play with or whatever, or just 7 in total that you bought through the years? Because I've had, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that Red Ivan is one that Shorty threw away. Oh my God. I said, what? She said it's a waste. Yeah, she threw it away. I was like, oh my God. So that's, then I had that Jackson, and then I had this one. So yeah, this is my 4th guitar. I'm on my 4th guitar.
You know, I think that it was crazy to throw away a guitar, but the way that you are as a person, you will get like really interested in something, and then boop, that one's off to the side, and then you're on to something else, and then boop, you go through phases. You do the same thing with food that you enjoy, everything. Like you do that in phases. So if you don't like care to step back and see that, she probably thought, oh, he's never going to play that or whatever. I don't know how often you were playing. I think it's crazy to throw away a guitar, but
I just got that guitar.
You just, oh, well, I don't have the explanation for it. You know, some of those things. She threw away
both of them. She threw away my first one, which I wanted just for.
Maybe she was pissed off at you because this doesn't make any sense.
Of course she was. And she, you know what I'm saying? It's all good. There's no boundaries with them people, man. It just isn't. Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, man, if there was ever a time to convert to Islam, boy. No. You can do all types of shit. You can curse her, all types of shit. The angels will curse her. You know?
Something about in the sleep, too. She enjoyed her sleep.
Yeah. Oh, what do you mean? She threw away all my guitars and went to sleep like a little child, like a little baby. May God ruin you and give you a reprobate mind.
My gosh.
That's what Martin Luther said to Erasmus, I think. He said, may God ruin you and give you a reprobate mind.
My gosh.
That's a very theologically concise way of saying go to hell, like literally. Literally, that's what that means. May God ruin you and give you a reprobate mind. SubhanAllah. Jesus. What a disaster. There's nothing you can do with that, man.
I guess not.
Nothing you can do. Yeah, Shorty threw away all those guitars, bro. So here we are. Then I went and got this one in violin. You guys watch. You guys wait. You're going to see. It's going to shock the world. The song to me is about my struggle with bipolar, the instability of cycling, being manic and depressive states, and the exhaustion that comes with that, symboled by the shifting colors of the sky or the sunset. Do you then see some beauty in your disorder? It's funny. I was just talking to somebody about my mom and the struggles that she had with bipolar. But do you see the instability of cycling, being manic and depressive states, and the exhaustion that comes from that, symbolized by the shifting colors of the sky? That's true. But do you? Because even how ephemeral and how quickly those things just go away, that beauty of the sunset or whatever. Do you see like pockets of time for you in your consciousness where it's like it didn't last very long, but you were able to do something incredible or whatever that you otherwise would not have been able to do were it not for your condition? Does that make any sense? But yeah, the manic thing is difficult, man. That's a terrible one. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like the people around you, especially if they don't know what's going on, the people around you, it's like you're two different people and they can't, like, what the hell's going on? So like it's a very hard thing to deal with. And then, you know, when you're coming off on the other side of it, it's like, you know what you did. Like, it's not like you're like a zombie. Like, she would know, but it was kind of like, I didn't really mean it to that degree. Like, I was in another state of mind. And unless you've gone through it, it's very impossible. But like, we try to understand my mom with it, you know what I'm saying? But it was very, very difficult, especially when you're kids, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you don't really see how difficult it is until you yourself have a job of maintaining a family and all the rest of it. And then, you know, you have all your, you know, whatever disorders to deal with. So, but I just wonder if you see any beauty in it, because I still saw beauty in my mom's bipolar. Because when she was up, when she was up on a good slope, when she was on an upslope, it was incredible, and she did incredible things for the world. And it got to the point where I was like, well, you can't put too much stock in that, because there's going to be an inevitable crash. And I think there was a degree of wisdom in that for me as a kid, like to have that understanding. But at the same time, like, I still think I'm probably affected even now to like not completely being in the moment, so I don't have to deal with the ramifications of those emotions. I like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't enter into a lot of things like completely on an emotional level because of that. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I can get rid of people so easily, you know what I'm saying? Because they've always been at a deficit. You know what I'm saying? There's always been hey, something in the future might happen where you and this person never speak again. So, like, you give this much of yourself to people, and, it's always been like that.
You wouldn't know, like, people, like, unless you're, like, really, really close to you, maybe then you could probably tell. But, like, I think if you're just, like, a friend of yours, I don't think that people could tell that you're not. Because they always think that you're actually deeper than anyone else they've ever been around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens. You know what I'm saying? But
well, I think it's the genuine interest you take in people. Most people are more interested in telling other people about themselves than in hearing about another person. So I think that you are not as like you'll talk about yourself too, but you're interested in other people and learning about them and stuff. And I think that people enjoy that. Well,
yeah, I mean, obviously other people do fascinate me. I think everybody has the same questions I do. I just probably wouldn't ask. So it looks like they're disinterested, but sometimes it's like, like, why are you prying so much? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to pry into other people's business. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're lucky you look the way you look, too.
What do you mean?
I just think that if you looked like JB, I think it'd be harder for you to get in for, like, when you start talking to people automatically, like we were at this hotel one time, and there was, like, the workers were out front, and they were protesting. It was a disaster. I couldn't even believe that such a thing was occurring in a hotel, and that they didn't discount the rates because you just rolled up and they were like beating drums out there. Yeah, it was like, anyway.
That's when we first got our YouTube money.
Yeah, it was pretty weird.
We're rich, we're gonna go.
So this girl, she was working there, and Vinny was like, I had first asked her a question, and I could tell she wasn't going to tell me shit. And then you were like, yes, you like started talking to her, man. She started letting everything out. I was like, how is this happening? But I felt like that she was like, man, this guy's not, like, he's not going to cause any trouble. Look at him, he's cool like this. Like, you just kind of put off this cool vibe and with your headband and stuff.
Well, I was black, you know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
She was a person of color. So she knew I was going to sell her out to the man.
Anyway.
I don't really see any beauty in my bipolar, but I can't help but try to capture beauty in my art, so I describe it in more beauty than it deserves. I don't know if I see ugliness either, though, necessarily, relative to bipolar. Well, yeah, I asked that question because of because of lyricism in the song. Because sometimes our subliminal mind is trying to tell us something. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, like...
Oh, you have a tongue drum? I love those things.
There was... What is a tongue... Like, so...
These.
So, like, what happens?
You take this little stick with the little ball on the end. It... Boom, boom.
Why do they call it a tongue drum?
I assume because look at the little things. They look like tongues.
Oh, I see.
That's my assumption.
I see.
Okay, I've seen those, and then they have like something that's called a something pan. Oh my word! When these things are friggin' out by they're so therapeutic, man. I love them. They have one. What is it called? Something pan. Maybe you guys know. And there's this guy that takes it out by the water. And the water will just be, and he looks just like super earthy, like he probably hasn't combed his hair, like none of that.
Oh,
like,
didn't we play with those when we went to NAM?
Yeah, we did. We played with one of these, yeah.
Yeah.
And he just plays this something pan. It looks similar to this.
I don't know if they called it a tongue drum. I don't know what they called it.
Man, and he just plays this thing by the water, running by the water, and it's like, I don't know, there's something about the sound of that like water, the visuals of the water. And
but that
the
thing was
sounds
like
that are coming from that.
$4,000 though. That thing was.
Well, the one that
the one that we were looking at.
Yeah, these are on Temu. The ones I'm looking at. The Temu ones are reasonably priced, but I don't know how small they are. It looks like they're like little.
Okay, so Celadon used a tongue drum. Cinnamon was just a ukulele, but played with the mallet from his tongue drum.
Ah, handpan. I think you're right, Silver.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's a handpan.
I think that's what it was.
There
was a $4,000 handpan over at NAMM. I'm like, we're good. I'll play 4K for a guitar.
Right, it's the handpan. Yeah, and they just like, man,
it was really good though.
You look at this one. It's $2,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it sounded so nice though. Like it sounded really, really good.
It didn't matter how poorly you played it. It just was nice. Every time I see one of those, I always think, man, that would be nice for kids. Okay, it's quiet time, but you give them that. So
our kids would find a way to destroy that shit. You know that.
Yeah, they were like, okay, seriously, guys, they were supposed to be in quiet time, which means like everybody just like chills out for an hour. One of the baby takes a nap, and the other one's like they can read their books or they can watch a little show. So I went to go take care of something, and I came back, and there was like water all over the floor. I was like, "What happened?" And the stroller is like dumped over. They were like, "We were putting gas in our car." They had the water bottles, and they were pouring it into the stroller to put gas in the car.
9.3 for me. 9.3 for me.
I thought it was creative, so you know,
9.3 for me.
All right,
with the gas thing.
Yeah, I didn't get too angry. I was like, you know what? I was like, all right, let's not put gas in the car until we're outside.
All right, dear listener, if you want to get your song reviewed, send me an email, VillageXchange@gmail.com. I will send you the particular. Shout out to Silver putting themselves out there like that. Look, if I had that talent, I should have been already out there. So shout out to Silver. Don't forget, Silver, to sign out those schedule-y thingies to the Bible Boogie. This is honestly really good job. Really good job. All right, we got to get out of here. Much love to all you beautiful people.
Bye, guys.
Everybody that's on Rumble, like, share, comment, subscribe. We need to get more. We couldn't even run our Rumble contest because we could not get enough likes. So we couldn't even run the Rumble contest where, look, eventually some of you people could end up winning.
Winners.
Being paid handsomely.
Yes.
Later, Grizz. Later, everybody. Much love to all you beautiful people. Vin out.
Sori out.